I would love to inform you, kind of give some information for people to look at. And then if it does make sense, it is the absolute favorite part of my job is to show people how they can go from 30 years in debt down to like 5 or 10 years and saving hundreds of thousands of dollars. That is like the absolute best feeling in the world, because it's just like this weight lifted off of people's shoulders. So if you are in debt, whether that's mortgage or student loans or whatever the case is, and you would like to see if there's a faster way, I'd love to have a conversation with you. And then if it's a good fit, we move forward. If not, then we'll part as friends.
Welcome everybody back to another exciting show, the About That Water podcast, where we help the sandwich generation build strong financial habits so that they can talk about money, spend money, and enjoy their money with confidence. Today, I have somebody who really loves budgeting. I mean, so much so that they came up with their own framework for it, and I can't wait to hear it, and I'm sure you all can't wait to hear about it either, because this is such an amazing tool. Welcome to the show, Andy. How are you doing today?
Doing good, Anthony. How are you?
I'm doing good. So one of the things that a lot of people hear about is budgeting. I usually try to use the word spending plan. What tool do you use? Like, what word do you use besides budgeting?
Yeah, no, and I think that, it's the other B word, right? But people's barriers go up as soon as you mention the word budget. So I like your idea of spending plan, because that's really what a good budget is just how are you going to spend your money? Where is your money going? And then obviously any decent budget app is going to be able to show you what you've spent in the past. What is our current spending plan? Something that I'm excited to share with you about is a new thing that I've found, which gets into the thing that's unique to what I'd like to share with your audience about is forecasting, right? There's a lot of budgeting that talks about what we're doing now and how we've spent money in the past. But if you think about it like driving a car, no one drives a car looking in their rearview mirror. They want to look forward, right? So how cool would it be to have that insight on the backside of things, but really let's keep our focus where it needs to be down the road. What do I need to do? How is today's decision going to impact the future?
Yeah. So, and also driving forward, we need a clean windshield, right?
Hey, exactly right.
Great. Because sometimes you got to do that maintenance from time to time. And I was like, after the snow and got all the salt, debris on it, you got to use the windshield wipers to make sure you get a clear vision. So that's what I was thinking about from the budgeting side of the house, of how do you build that clear vision of where you want to, like, at least to kind of see where you need to go.
Yeah, no, I think you're exactly right. You have to be honest with yourself. And again, not to get too, down in the weeds or into the psychology of things, but I think a lot of people maybe don't take that first step towards budgeting and getting a handle on their finances is because they don't want to be, I think they're nervous about what they're going to find out, right? It's one of those things like the ostrich that just buries his head in the sand and just like pretends nothing's wrong. I can't lie to you and tell you that I've never tried that approach, but we can't keep our head buried in the sand, right? Eventually we have to come up and say, all right, what is our current state? And again, we'll talk about the financial GPS aspect of things. Any GPS system needs to know where you're starting and where you want to go to give you accurate directions. Because if it doesn't know where you're starting, taking a right on the next turn doesn't make much sense if it doesn't know where you're starting from. So I guess to your original question is like, be honest with yourself. Be okay with like, okay, here's the spending plan that I'm on right now. Okay, I'm spending way too much on Amazon or Starbucks or whatever the case is. But like, okay, my really good buddy that I've done a podcast with says you cannot tame what you cannot name. And if you're just out here guessing as to how things are going and how much you're spending on this or that, then to your point, it's not a clear picture. And then you're really kind of fooling yourself at that.
Yeah. So can you talk about that? Like, naming the things that you can tame. Well, naming the things that you want to tame. And so putting a name to it. So give us an example of like, yes, we want to spend money on this, or in the future. What does that look like?
Right. And I think everybody's going to be a little bit different. It always, I don't know. Some days it frustrates me. On a good day, it intrigues me, right? It's one of those things like, oh, that's interesting that, Anthony's going to see it one way. I'm going to see it a different way. I mentioned that in the past or in the prior stuff that I'm an educator, right? So my background is as an educator. So I always come at it from that angle of things. I'm also a parent. So I kind of think of it on the parent side as well. And motivation it's kind of the stick or the carrot, right? So is it the idea of like what is hurting the most? Is that the motivation for you? Or is it the carrot of like, hey, I can see that vacation off into the future. If I'm saving right now towards that, then that's the carrot that I want to go before. That's one way to do it. The painful mode, right? The stick mode is like, oh my gosh, I had no idea I was spending so much money every month in interest. I had no idea. Like a third of my check is just going to make, the bank's pretty. Like that's kind of a horrible realization. But again, depending on where you're at, are you motivated by the stick or the carrot? I can offer both, and we can have conversations around those because everybody is unique.
Yeah. Do we but going back to the naming of it, do we name it far as, yes, this is our future? Cause I was actually had a live show, I think last week. Mm-hmm. I was talking about naming your future self. And so I was just calling myself, Grand Anthony. What would Grand Anthony current Anthony to do
right now? Right? Yeah. I love it.
So, planning for Grand Anthony to look, amazing, feeling good, and actually be like, you know what, I'm excited that younger Anthony actually did what he said he was going to do. So is that something like that you do with your planning?
I would say just me personally, I have used that to great effect in the past. I probably, to your point, I maybe need to incorporate that more into just my planning and my coaching with folks as well, because I'm a firm believer in speaking your future into existence, right? And your mind is just, that whole neuroplasticity aspect of things, the things that you repeat, the things that you speak into existence do happen if you do that enough, negatively or positively, right? If you are like, dadgummit, you're stupid, why did you make this horrible decision? That's just going to perpetuate itself. To your point, if I want to be Grand Anthony in the future, I need to make decisions that are going to benefit Grand Anthony in the future, right? So
yeah.
Not so much in the coaching that I do right now, but personally, absolutely, that's a great proven way to help you attain your future goals.
And because for the future goals, I was thinking about it as like I'm taking care of somebody else.
Okay.
And we, as I think the Bible always say, you got to be a giver. Mm-hmm. And so being a giver, we always love helping out somebody else. So I'm thinking of just start giving each of my savings accounts different names. Just for fun. Like, yeah. Oh yeah, I haven't helped Susie today. Let me give her $5, Because it's bringing me to, which is your birthday cake, your financial birthday cake. And I was like thinking about that when I was researching you and your process was like, does any of my accounts have birthdays that I'm not celebrating?
There you go.
And what are the things that I should do if I was celebrating myself or someone else? What would I do for them? So now that you put in the name to things, I was like, okay, this would be really cool. So can you talk about the financial birthday cake first as people can understand what it is?
I will do my best to do this off of the top of my head because this was something that my co-host Dale brought this to the table, and I was the one asking him questions. So you're going to test my memory as to how much I remember of this. But the idea is, and hopefully we can go big screen on this one so you can kind of see the full thing. I think it's something like this with your little candle on the top. The idea is that you have to build your financial future in a way that's going to support itself. And I think the one that people get out of order all the time, and I think it's this one, is your retirement. I don't know if it's the very, very top one, but it's it's either the top two. And right here is the security aspect of things, right? So your security is your life insurance, your disability insurance, things to that point. And then this is like your debt freedom, like getting free from debt at this point. And all of these are important, right? Every layer of the cake is important and tastes good and this kind of stuff. But I think the idea in what we were trying to convey in that episode was people spend a lot of time and right out of the gate, they're like, I'm going to build everything off of my retirement. Okay, that's fine. Again, it's great to that point to invest in your retirement. However, what happens if you have an injury or an illness at that point? Do you have anything to fall back on that's going to keep food on the table, right? And then are we aware of how much money is going to your interest every single month, right? Most people that I work with have a mortgage. And when I do this debt-free analysis for them, they had no idea how much money in there like $2,000 a month. Let's just throw that out, right? $2,000 a month starting out at a beginning, a 30-year mortgage. Take a wild stab of $2,000 for a 30-year mortgage. What would you guess the very first month, how much of that is going to interest?
With the attrition rate, we're looking at about, I'm thinking maybe 1,500 straight to
interest. Exactly right. Yeah. So
I was right. Oh, good.
Yeah, it's right around that. So it is very, very top heavy. And you hear people talk about, a mortgage is interest heavy at the beginning, and then it kind of transitions over, which, like, okay. And I think a lot of what I'm trying to do as I'm talking to people is just, we talked about the clear windshield in front is like, let's ask questions. Let's identify, okay, exactly how much is your debt costing you? How much are you actually paying in interest, right? I get that you have a good, quote unquote, good interest rate. But did you know that if you go by the bank's plan, most often you're going to end up spending 100% of that in interest, not 6% or 7%, because of how interest is factored on the mortgages. So it's like we have to ask the right questions and be real with ourselves to really get a clear picture as to where we're going in the future. So I kind of got off the birthday cake model, but I wanted to just incorporate and just kind of show the importance of each of the layers, and the one that people probably sleep on the most is that debt freedom aspect of things.
Wow. Now, because you mentioned earlier that you're a teacher, and one of the things is that, like, my undergrad is in elementary education, so
nice.
It's always fun.
I knew that last time. Mine as well. Check it out. Love it.
Yes. But as a teacher, we have to kind of have the heart and mind to kind of look out for others without losing ourselves. And actually, they don't talk about this a lot, but we also have to be able to turn on the anger and turn it off immediately to realize the focus that is on the act, not the person.
Yes.
Building up that muscle. Just take us back to your earliest childhood, like your upbringing. What was it that kind of drove you into the teaching mindset and said, like, you know what, this is something that I really like? Yeah.
So I can remember early on, so I'm the oldest of the grandkids. It was me and then my sister and then three and then four girl cousins. So it was like me and a bunch of girls, but I was the oldest. So it was kind of like if I wasn't, teaching or whatever, I was generally showing off, which ended me up in the emergency room more than once because I was trying to show off for my cousins. But anyways, that idea of kind of being the oldest and the one that was kind of center stage, talking through things, explaining things and whatever. So I think I always kind of had that slant. Both my parents were teachers at church. I went to a church camp, and I think it was my sophomore or junior year. And from the very first night, they were talking about, what is God's calling in your life, right? Let's break through. Let's figure out what it is that God's calling you to do. And I remember, like, by the third, like whatever the final night was, I was like in desperation mode. Like I hadn't heard that audible voice or that just sense in my spirit, like, this is what you want, what I want you to do from God, right? And the last night, I remember the speaker saying, if you have always had a calling, or if you have always had a passion for a certain thing in your life, that could be God's calling in your life. Don't overthink this. And I'm like, well, why didn't you tell me that? Freaking out this entire time. So that was my confirmation at that point that I was going into education, and it was an absolutely lovely career field, and I still have that teacher's heart. I apply it in different ways, but I felt like it was definitely a God's calling in my life.
That is awesome. So, like, what is your teaching style now?
It's changed throughout the years. Yeah. So to your point, Mike, when I started out, I was an elementary music teacher, right? So, I mean, I've run the gamut, everything from elementary music all the way down to kindergarten to now, teaching very technical things to adults and everything in between, coaching middle school basketball. I'm helping out with band at the high school level, like being kind of an assistant instructor on that. So I guess to your question, what is my teaching style now? One of the many hats that I have is a educational technology company called Interactive Learning. So if you asked what my teaching style is, I would say that I really try to incorporate interactivity into learning, because if people are sitting and getting, it's not a very passive learning does not work. I think even more so in today's day and age with limited amount of attention span, people need interaction. They need questioning. They need, thought process. They need to be able to ask questions in the moment. So we're all learning and kind of growing together rather than me just being up on the stage, just like I was at the beginning and telling them how to do stuff. I think I've adjusted a little bit since then.
Yeah, because I even noticed that the attention span has driven so far down now to like maybe 6 seconds, almost 3 seconds now.
Embarrassing, but yes.
Yeah, it's ridiculous. Like, because even when it comes to just, with the podcast, like they always say like, hey, as a podcaster, like we had to get those first 5 seconds in just for somebody to pay attention. And then it's like, well, what do we have people do while they listening to the show? Most people out there watching TV, not watching TV, but they folding clothes, driving,
Right.
what have you.
Whatever.
And then it's like, how do you bridge that gap, make it interactive with just your voice?
It's tricky.
Yeah.
No, I completely agree. And I think I had, in between the first and second season of my podcast, Empowered Learning Podcast, I actually went out to a professional podcasting company and did an audit. And I said, hey, tell me what I'm doing wrong. What could I do better? And this kind of stuff. And they said the exact same thing. You got to catch people's attention right at the beginning. And then it's one of those things like, your podcast is good. I feel like mine is pretty good as well. But if we can't catch their attention in that first 15 seconds, then it doesn't matter how good the content is. So, it's a little daunting if I'm being honest with you, to try to think ahead of the thing of like, okay, what's going to capture attention from the get-go to get them to actually listen to the rest of it. Because I know, like the conversation we're having right now, there's little nuggets that people can pull from, but you got to stick around, right, to be able to hear the nuggets.
And that's always the fun part of like from teaching. And that's probably why like I'm drawn to podcasting. It's just like you do miss talking to somebody sometimes, even though majority of the time, like I just have like a little like figurine or something like that that I'm talking to.
Okay.
And it's great to have somebody on to talk to with me, give me some type of feedback.
I can relate.
Because it's the reason why I'm bringing up podcasting mostly because it, in the sense of the teaching side of the house and the way how we reach people in different areas, especially when it comes to budgeting. People don't want to talk about the boring stuff, but how do we make the boring stuff fun and entertaining? And so has there been anything that you come across on your end that you're like, what, this has been fun, but I think I need to start digging a little bit more into it that you want to share with the audience?
I would say, and this sounds cliche, and I'll try to say it in a way that maybe is a little bit unique and different, but people like stories, right? If you can say something in a foundational truth, in a new way, in a way that maybe gets people, those are like the messages that always stick with me, whether that's like a sermon or just something that I hear or a podcast. It's like, okay, I've heard that truth before, but never quite in that way. And that kind of shifted my focus on that. Like, oh, I get it. I see it right now. It's in a different light, right? So whether that's an analogy, I talk about like the financial GPS, and it kind of works really well for me just because I would literally get lost in a paper bag. Like I am the worst at directions in the entire world, and my family knows that this is true. Just yesterday, I'm like, no, I don't need the GPS, and I absolutely did need the GPS. We got lost, and I had to redirect. Any of those things that can, you can relate to personally, and that you can kind of like say, okay, I know you know this, but stick with me on this one. What if we looked at it this way rather than that? Like those are the ones that kind of stick with me.
Gotcha. Because it's bringing back the feeling of, when you have your kids and you're trying to get them to understand what's going on, to not, I guess you could say, have them understand what the heck you try to talk about, like adult things.
Sure.
So what do you do to kind of help, I guess you could say, teach your kids about finances at their young ages?
I love that question. Because I've got my two boys are now on the verge. So one is an adult, he's 19, and my other one is 17. So we are on the back stages of this, the setting the foundation. And at this point, it's like, okay, what are you learning? How can I kind of, direct you in the right path and whatever? All the way back, even before I got into actually coaching and helping people with their finances, because both my parents were accountants and that kind of stuff. Numbers has always been something that comes naturally to me, and I kind of enjoy and kind of geek out about that. So I vividly remember giving my kids little envelopes, right? You remember the envelope system where it's like, okay, say if you've got $10 for this, you just put it in the envelope and then you pull it out when you need to do it. So we did that on kind of like a minor scale, and we did 10% for tithes. I think it was 10% for gifts, or maybe it's 20% for gifts. And then basically like 50% of what they had, they could spend, but the rest of that they had to save or give or save for future stuff and that kind of point. Super simple. I mean, it was like, other families are probably thinking like $10 a month. That's pretty, that's pretty cheap. But I'm like, it was less about how much money it was. It was more about like setting the foundation of like, this is the idea, right? It's the steward of, or the parable of the good steward, right? Be a good steward with what you have now. And then in the future, when God blesses you with more finances, because you've set this and you were faithful in the few, then he can entrust you with more.
I love that. Love that. Because a lot of people do forget about how simple it is to have those stories with your kids. Has there been like a moment with one of the kids where they was like, well, can you just give me more money when we hit the store?
It's never that simple. It's more of like, and it's so funny because I think my wife and I both kind of veer in and out of this. It's not how much you're spending, it's how much you're saving. It's like, oh, but Dad, like, look how much I'm saving on these pair of shoes or whatever. It's like, it's still $100, right? I mean, let's be realistic. I get that it's $200 shoes, but you're still spending $100, right? So those are ongoing, and everybody's, every person individually is going to have like a different slant towards that. So I will say I'm so blessed to have an amazing wife that we are a good yin and yang. And I think that's really important because my boys are as different as night and day. And if it was just up to me as to how to parent, I'm sure I would screw up royally all the time. So it's good that they have the advantage of having both of us to kind of, I don't know, keep the other one in check anyways.
Well, which one of y'all are the rod and which one's the carrot then?
Oh, man. Let me see if my wife's going to listen to this. I think she's probably the stick. I'm probably the carrot. I'm being honest. Don't tell her I told you, though.
Oh, man, that's funny. Because it gets you to think about, the dynamics of the household. And what you said is really good, that the kids can grow up and actually see how mom and dad actually dealt with their finances growing up and their views on finances. More so of like, don't follow what I do, but follow what I say model.
Right. And we all have moments of that. But if that's the repeated pattern over and over again, that's not what you pass down to your kids. One thing that I am very aware of and just trying to, I don't know, speak into and try to, broaden horizons of the boys is, and I forget how it is. I'm going to get it out of order, but it's like tough times create strong people. Strong people. Do you know what I'm talking about? And then it gets all the way back to, good times create weak people. And then you kind of have this cycle and this kind of stuff. So it's like, I don't want, us, and we're not wealthy by any stretch of the imagination, but we are not wanting for things. We have nice things every once in a while. We get to go on a nice vacation, that kind of stuff. So I don't want them to be unaware, I guess, of the struggles, right? I think a lot of times parents want to hide the struggles because they don't want them to see that, we had to save, we had to scrimp and save for this, or we had to say no to X, Y, and Z so we could have this one thing. And I honestly, just personally, I think that you do your kids a disservice if they never see the struggle, because then they're like, oh, well, we can totally do that. And that's why swipe card, right? You can't afford that, even though you can put it on a card, right? And I think that's a dangerous place to get into, especially coming into adulthood.
That is a life lesson right there. Kind of wish I had that lesson early on in life.
We all live through it, right?
Right. We wouldn't be talking about budgeting at this point. If you're like, oh yeah, just spend money.
Yeah, right.
So now that we got to know you a little bit more, can we talk about future casting in your budgeting? So what is that?
Absolutely. So I have to set the record straight. As much as I wear lots of hats, like I mentioned before, I need to give credit where credit is due. I am just a fortunate person to have found this amazing product that already existed. I'm pretty smart, but I'm not that smart. And I actually had the honor of interviewing the founder of this financial GPS just a few weeks ago. It actually drops next week, for what it's worth. We're January. I have no idea when this is going to drop, but in January, on my podcast, I got to talk to the founder of this GPS system, which is really, really cool. Anyway, sorry. What was your question? That was not where we're going with that. I just wanted to straight to say, hey, it's really cool. I'm excited about it, but it's not something that I created because I'm smart, but I'm not that smart.
Yeah, we were talking about future casting.
Oh yeah. Gotcha. So I think the thing that I love about this, and you had asked earlier, which I don't know if I answered you as directly as I should have. You asked what was the budgeting system, or what do we call it? We called it budget spending plan. For years and years, I used a service called YNAB. YNAB. You need a budget. It's a lot like Mint Money and different things like that. I loved it. They had rules set aside. You give every dollar a job. You roll with the punches. I mean, all of it made perfect sense for budgeting. It was great, and I used it to the point that I found out that budgeting is great, but to my analogy earlier, it's like trying to drive your car looking in the past. And that it was kind of an aha moment to me. It's like, okay, that's really good. It's good to know how much I spent, and that can kind of, maybe change some trends and that kind of stuff. But to your point, if I need to, we're in the spot right now where we need to get a new car, right? So what if I could say, with my current income, at what point could we drop $5,000 as a down payment and then afford $500 per month? At what point can we do that? I don't know another system that allows you to say, let's do this, and then kind of give me a future cast of like, when is this going to be able to be a doable thing? That, in my mind, gives me a lot of peace and clarity as to where we're going. Budgeting is great, and our system does that as well, but we don't live in the past. We live in the now and the future, and that has been kind of a game changer for me.
Okay. Can you give us, so the car is a great example. Is there like a website for this, or just kind of something that we just kind of plug the numbers in?
I would say the easiest way to do this, and again, I'm speaking in generalities because, again, I don't own it. I just represent this company. So Empower Wealth Solutions is the company that I started. So the easiest way to get a hold of me is empowerwealth.solutions. I'll see if I can get a little dot right there, if you can find it right there, right between there, empowerwealth.solutions, and then just click get started, and then it's just a conversation with me. There's a lot of good information on there. It links out to other sites. So lots of information out there. And again, to your point before, it kind of depends on, are we a stick? Are we a carrot? Are you in a place where you're drowning in debt, trying to get out of it? Are you in a place where you're doing pretty good, but you need to have a little bit more income coming in? We can have conversations along all of those sides, but there's a lot of good information there. And I'd love to talk to folks that are listening to this, and we can figure out what makes the most sense for them.
Sounds good. Now, before we get to the final four, there's a couple questions usually about your parents, because they are accountants, and I'm sure they already talked about their wills and so forth. Mm-hmm. Did you decide on if you're going to move in the in-laws?
Great question. No, we have not. And again, we've already established that my wife's not listening to this. No, that's a great point. And honestly, I feel like even though I did have a great education and was kind of surrounded by that, but I think some things were just left undiscussed. I knew to not spend more than you made, but I didn't know the specifics on how to budget and how to leverage credit cards in a good way, because you can use them in a good way if you do it in a smart way. So I mentioned that just to say that the idea of a trust and a will and that kind of stuff, that was I actually found that out as an adult, and I kind of had to kind of go through the different learning curves on that. So because I own businesses, I'm a believer in trusts and just kind of putting things there. So that kind of takes the guesswork out of like, hey, where's the money going? Who's getting it? What time did they get that? So big believer in trusts and that aspect of things. To your other question, are we moving in or not? It remains to be seen. Like I said, I've got two boys in the house right now. I guess we will have 2 vacant rooms in the future. My wife and I love our personal space, so I think that would be a little bit of a stretch. But you do what you got to do. I love my mom and my mother-in-law, so there's worse roommates out there than those two. That I think we could work it out.
That's awesome.
How do you like that for dodging the question?
I'm sure your wife would approve.
Oh, there we go.
So to keep it wife friendly, is there anything else that you want to leave the person that's listening today before we dive into the final four?
Yeah, I would just say, like we said before, if you feel like you are, you're making decent money, but it just feels like your reality is always that you're going to be in debt. Like if you're kind of living in that mindset of like, my reality is that I will always be in debt, but you're not satisfied with that. There's like the cognitive dissonance. Like, I think there's something better for me than what America has kind of sold us on. And you're like, I want to find out if there's a better way. Please reach out to me. I would love to have conversations. I hope that you can feel after, you're 20 minutes into our conversation, you can tell that I'm not the sales guy. I'm the educator guy, right? I would love to inform you, kind of give some information for people to look at. And then if it does make sense, it is the absolute favorite part of my job is to show people how they can go from, 30 years in debt down to like 5 or 10 years and saving hundreds of thousands of dollars. That is like the absolute best feeling in the world, because it's just like this weight lifted off of people's shoulders. So if you are in debt, whether that's mortgage or student loans or whatever the case is, and you would like to see if there's a faster way, I'd love to have a conversation with you. And then if it's a good fit, we move forward. If not, then we'll part as friends.
Ready? That sounds good. So, ready for the final four?
I'm ready. Here we go.
All right. Number one, what does wealth mean to you?
Ooh, that's such a good question. I think wealth is options. Wealth is options to do what you want when you want it. It goes far beyond how much money you have in your bank. It is the wealth to have the time to decide what I want to do, spend the time with who I want to go, to be with, travel where I want to do, work if I want to, not work if I don't want to. I really feel it comes down to options and just choice to be able to be the master of your own destiny at that point.
Like that one. Number two, what was your worst money mistake?
Oh man, this one hurts. We have learned to roll with the punches and just accept this one. But I would say probably our worst money mistake ever was buying into a timeshare. Yeah, I'm sure I'm not the first one that's ever said that. We are on the very, very tail end of that, to the point where it's like walking away from it right now feels like that's probably the worst decision to make, or the maybe better to say the best decision for us at this point is to, since we've dedicated so much money to it, is to at least see it through and actually get some value out of it. Because if we walked away right now, it would just be money out of our pocket, and we really didn't get the benefit that we were working towards. However, if I could go back again, I would not do it the same way I did. So there's my short-ish answer.
It's okay. Collect the $100 and walk out. Gotcha.
Exactly.
Number three, is there a book that inspired your journey or changed your perspective?
Ooh, lots of different books are popping into my head. And again, it's kind of on the journey of like me as a person, and just overcoming my, the thoughts that are going in my head. That one that pops in my head on that side of things, on the personal, is The Bug in Your Brain. I was very fortunate to have this person as a coach, personal coach for mine. His name is Robert Christensen. Brilliant guy. Used a lot of ancient history to kind of apply it into, our world at this point. He was a computer programmer. So he relates the misnomers and the misguidings in your own brain that you have convinced yourself as bugs, and how can we program those out and reprogram our brain. Brilliant book. On the finance side, I would say Rich Dad, Poor Dad. I listened to that and re-listen to that and read that often. I just think there's so many nuggets in there. Obviously, there's, some things have adapted, and you probably need to, that shouldn't be the only book that you're reading. But as far as like just starting and understanding what is an asset, what's not an asset, how you can get away from changing your time for money, that's a brilliant book. I absolutely love that one.
Awesome. Yeah, that one is pretty common, but The Bug in My Brain, that one is pretty cool. I'm actually looking on the library to see if I can get a copy of it.
I even have it right here. I'll show you what it looks like here. So there's no question as to what it looks like. Hold on, I gotta get my cool system here. Here we go, right here. So that's what it looks like. The Bug in Our Brain, Robert Christensen. Check it out. Highly recommended. Tell him I sent you. No, really. That's good.
I might have to ask him to be on the show.
There you go.
All right. Number four. What is your favorite dish to make?
Ooh, to make? Okay. I like to eat food. I don't make food. My wife is such a good cook that she usually kicks me out of the kitchen. I can make pretty good spaghetti, and I think my whole family would attest to that. Like, I can make pretty stinking good spaghetti. I haven't done brownies in a while, but I learned from my mom, which is the amazing baker, that I can make some pretty good brownies too. So there you go.
All right.
Spaghetti and brownies, not a bad night.
Because most guys do breakfast, so it's very rare to find somebody do like a savory dish.
There you go. Hey, just threw you a curveball there.
Right. So this is the last question of the show, which is, where could people find out more about you?
I kind of already did it before, but Empower Wealth Solutions, empowerwealth.solutions would be a great place to reach out to me. And got my cell phone. You can text me. My email is empowerwealthsolutions@gmail.com. So however you want to find me, you can probably look on Facebook and Instagram as well. But just reach out. Go to the website. That's a really good idea. It talks a little bit about some things that we haven't even had a chance to talk about. I'm doing in-person workshops. We call them Debt Behind Me, Wealth Before Me workshops. So how can I put debt behind me? How can I build towards wealth and that in the future? Very passionate about that and have some really, really fun things planned for 26.
That does sound awesome. All right. Well, I really will stay tuned, stay locked in with you just to kind of see how that kicks off. Be rooting you on from afar. So we good.
Yeah, no, I engage, and I very much appreciate the opportunity to kind of chat with you and the audience. And you are fantastic at this. So keep it up, man.
Oh, thank you so much. And I'll be following your show. I just signed up, subscribe to your YouTube as well.
Sweet.
Man, thank you so much for being on the show, Andy. This has been fun. Hopefully your wife listened all the way through the whole end.
Exactly what to say. All right, no, you got something else to do at this point.
Right.
Too funny.
This was fun. All right, well, thank you, everybody.
Yeah,
be safe.
See you.
Out.